Okay. Well, first, thank you for being here. Thanks for your good work in this recent part of our congressional session. And a few minutes ago, something very disappointing and stunning happened on the Senate floor. The vast majority of Republicans blocked a hugely bipartisan package that would have helped families, would have helped businesses, would have helped housing, and helped communities hit by natural disasters. Something the American people wanted. And once again, they say, well, why are they making us vote on this? Because this was bipartisan. Rare is the moment that the Senate Republicans are even to the right of the House Republicans, but it happened today. This bill was crafted in good part by one of the most conservative members of the Senate, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Smith. It got 357 votes, only 70 against, but Republicans still had a vote against it. And it's sort of something they seem to be doing. Under orders from their candidate, Trump, they want to block everything. So that's what they did on the border, the strong, tough, bipartisan border bill we had. That's what they're doing today on the tax bill. That's what they're also doing on crypto and even on some of the AI regulations. The American people don't want that. That's not a way to help people. That's not a way to govern. To listen to Donald Trump and be totally political is not a way to win an election, Republicans. And that's why you're not doing very well right now. Okay. So, just in sum, the Senate Republicans boldly told the American people, we refuse to help you in 2024. And we want to be frank, Republicans voted no because of partisanship, not policy. The senior senator from Missouri said it himself a few days ago. He said this about Republican leadership, quote, they're not interested in passing anything clearly. Now, if getting things done in a bipartisan way was an Olympic event, today Senate Republicans would not have gotten any medal. No gold, no silver, no bronze. Senate Republicans were handing out leaflets earlier this week saying how Republicans must not give in to a Democratic, quote, win before November. Well, Republicans, governing is not just about political wins. This was about making sure American families win. And today, because of Republicans, American families lost. Now, as to the summer. It's been a really busy and active summer in the U.S. Senate. Before the August work period begins, let me summarize the main takeaways. Earlier this week, we passed two of the most important updates in decades to federal laws protecting our kids, CASA and COPPA. This was bipartisan. Senate Republicans did the right thing here. But I've called now on the House to take these bills up and keep the momentum alive, to do right by the parents who worked so hard to get these bills done. It's a no-brainer. But unfortunately, this morning, House Republicans reported that they'll refuse to take these bills up. I pray that these reports are not accurate, since just 1 week ago, Speaker Johnson said he'd like to get COSA done. Letting COSA and COPPA collect dust in the House would be an awful mistake and a gut punch to the brave, wonderful parents who have worked so hard to reach this point. These parents, the kids across America, deserve better. I hope House Republicans swiftly change course and take up COSA, take up COPPA. If Speaker Johnson put them on the floor, they would pass, my guess is, with overwhelming bipartisan majorities. So you've got to wonder, why can't Republicans get on the same page? We see an overwhelming majority of Republicans, including leadership, voting for tax bill in the House, but in the Senate, a dismal showing. And meanwhile, we have almost every single Senate Republican voting yes on COSA and COPPA, and then the House Republican leadership kills it. Both of these bills, tax bill, COSA and COPPA, help kids and families. Both of these bills had overwhelming support from Republicans and the American people. What is going on? Why can't Republicans get on the same page? And it shows the American people that the Republicans' bellwether isn't helping the American people. It's helping Donald Trump and the hard right achieve their unpopular agenda. We saw this also at the start of June going into July, when Democrats held votes to codify the right to abortion, contraception, and IVF into law. All across the country, we're seeing the horrible Dobbs decision not only rip away a woman's right to choose, but it's opening the floodgates for draconian, cruel bans on women's choice from one end of America to the other. Democrats are clear where we stand. We all voted to secure these rights, protect women, protect families. But unfortunately, for the American people, Republicans showed us where they stand, and we know that if given the chance, they would vote for a nationwide abortion ban. So as we turn to August, Democrats are going to be going to their home states, talking about the contrast between the two parties. It's a glaring contrast and one we're happy to talk about and bring home to the American people. We're not just going to be talking about the accomplishments of this summer and this year, but implementation of the massive accomplishments of the last Congress. Democrats have routinely fought and delivered for the American people. And don't take my word for it, look at the facts. Not just the bills we pass, but what that means in every state across the country. From big projects, one of the best projects Nevada has wanted for years, high-speed rail between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. Bridges that communities have been longing for. The Spence Bridge connecting Ohio and Kentucky and the Blatnick Bridge connecting Wisconsin and Minnesota are just two. And rural broadband. Our candidates, our senators are going in rural counties and saying, for the first time, you're going to get broadband. We put it in the BIF bill. These counties desperately need it. You know, Roosevelt said in the 1930s, electricity was a necessity, created the REA, Rural Electrification Agency, and brought electricity to rural areas. Well, broadband is just as big a necessity in the 21st century. And rural counties from one end of this country to the other are now getting it. It helps telemedicine get better health care. It helps their schools, better education. It helps bring small businesses there. And you know, in our states, if you talk about it nationally, it doesn't have the same impact. I'm building a whole lot of bridges in the country. But when you go to your state and talk about a specific bridge or a specific rural county that's getting broadband, it matters. And that's why our candidates, our senators, are ahead in the polls in just about every single race in the battleground areas. Even in my state, the Gateway Tunnel, but also smaller and more meaningful projects like rehabbing the dilapidated Bridge Street in Cornwall, New York into a usable park. The list goes on and on. Americans are seeing that Democrats are producing in community after community. Republicans are playing political games. We welcome the contrast. Questions? Yes.
So on the No Kings Act, is the plan to bring that bill up under unanimous consent or to have an up and down vote on it, and when can we expect that to happen?
Okay, we are looking at all kinds. Look, let me take a big picture step here. The Supreme Court is a morass. It's an ethical morass, and it's a substantive morass. It's an ethical morass as we've seen what's happened. Multi-billionaires from the right wing giving gifts of millions of dollars total to Supreme Court justices. At the same time, these right-wing billionaires are funding legal suits to go to that Supreme Court. Who would have thought? And I have to say, Chief Justice Roberts is derelict in his responsibility. He should be cleaning this up. He's not, and that's why we in Congress have an obligation to do it. And then it's a substantive morass, constantly moving to the hard mega right, taking away people's rights away, taking away rights away from everybody, taking away a woman's right to choose, siding with the big special interests, and even violating our democracy with the ridiculous, awful decision that presidents are kings, that if they do something they think is official, that they can do, as Nixon said, whatever they want. So we have 38 co-sponsors. I just introduced the bill a few minutes ago or an hour ago on the floor, and we will be pursuing the best way to get that done. It's very important to us, and I believe the American people are with us all the way. Okay, yes, woman in the back there.
Obviously, you guys have 5 weeks of recess. We're looking ahead to September. There
Don't cut us short. 3.
In 3 weeks before your government funding deadline hits, are you confident that you can avert a shutdown, and what other priorities do you have?
Look, it's going to take bipartisanship to avert a shutdown, as it always does. In the Senate, we're working on bipartisan bills. I think they passed 3 or 4 more bills today in the Senate Appropriations Committee, Democrat and Republican. Chair Murray, Ranking Member Collins working together. Contrast that to the House, where they can't pass anything bipartisan. They can't even pass some of the bills with partisan majorities, and it's filled with poison pills. So we're going to have to work hard, but I'm confident if Speaker Johnson learns the lessons of the past few times and works in a bipartisan way, we can avoid a shutdown. Okay, go ahead, Manu.
Trump won Montana by about 16 points in 2020. He won Ohio by about 8 points. Do you have any concerns about Kamala Harris's more liberal politics dragging down Tester and Brown?
There is excitement from one end of the country to the other about the Democratic ticket. And Tester and Brown and our senators, the people of those states know Tester fights for Montana regardless of party. Brown fights for Ohio regardless of party. And that's why they're doing so well in those states despite the lead that Trump has. I am confident that they are going to win their seats because they are standing, and they're willing to break with the Democratic Party when they find the need to do it to represent their states. But I am confident we're going to win those seats. I'm confident we are going to keep the Senate. You know, when we had this break 2 years ago, you all said to me, oh, you're going to lose 4 or 5 seats. Look at the map. I said, we're going to break even and maybe pick up a seat. Folks, we're going to break even and maybe pick up a seat or 2. Yes.
Speaking of Sheriff Brown, one of his top priorities is the Rail Safety Act. Do you really think that J.D. Vance, as the vice presidential nominee, can't get 10 Republicans?
Well, you know, I asked J.D. Vance about 4 times, this is before he was vice president, to give me 10 names of Republicans, and we need a few more than 10 if we have an absence here or there, but to give me 10 names of Republicans who would vote for the bill. He couldn't. Now he's vice president nominee. Now he's the vice president nominee. I have a feeling the American people are not going to be very confident in him as vice president, and if God forbid, you know, well, I would say I have a feeling that if Trump could no longer serve, J.D. Vance is one of the last people Americans would want to see serve as president. But let me just say this. If he can show us that it's a bill we want to pass, it's a good bill. And if he can show us that there are 10 votes now, maybe that his vice president's change, we'll get the bill done. We may need a time limit. We don't want to take 2 weeks. We can't with 3 weeks left. But so far, lead Republicans are blocking it. John Thune doesn't want to have the 2 people on the trains, which are very important. Other people are blocking it. But show us the 10 votes and we'll get it done. Yes?
Schumer, if you do keep the majority, and you are a majority leader for another 2 years, what's at the top of your agenda in the first 100 days?
Well, we'll have to discuss it. But things like democracy, things like passing the kinds of tax bills we're looking at that help families and the child tax credit are important. Doing more for clean energy, doing more for transportation and education are really, really important things to us. There are many different things we will do. But if you look, the last time Democrats had all 3 places that deal with legislation, the President, the House, and the Senate, we had, we passed more good legislation than we have in decades. If you look at what we did there, you'll see us do many things in that regard in the next Congress, should we have the House, Senate, and presidency, which I believe we will have. Yes?
Schumer, does today's vote on the tax bill failing have any bearing on negotiations next year when there will be a broader set of tax cuts expiring from the 2017?
Well, let me just say this. I am hopeful that Republicans, when they go home, are going to feel the heat and maybe come back and ask, we asked for months. People ask, why is it coming up this week? Well, we asked for months for Crapo, Ranking Member Michael Crapo, to tell us what changes they wanted, how we could make, we are a party that's willing to get things done if we can't get everything we want done. But we heard nothing other than they didn't want to pass it. So I'm hopeful still that it won't be dead, that I'm hopeful we can get it done. I'm hopeful they will come back and stop their intransigent position that they're not going to do anything because Donald Trump doesn't want to see any accomplishments here. As for next year, If we get the majority, one of the things we do is undo those real tax cuts to the very wealthy and to the big corporations that Trump did, and instead direct the tax breaks to average working families in America who make below $400,000. His bill favored the very, very wealthy. And after they passed it, do you remember? Our messaging was so strong up to 2018, they couldn't even talk about it in the elections. Okay, one more. Yes.
Leader Schumer, thank you. On appropriations, it looks like there's going to be a continuing resolution, and many Republicans have said that they want a long continuing resolution past the inauguration day, so that if Republicans win, they can impose more conservative policy changes. How long do you want the CR to be? And on the question of appropriations as well, many of your colleagues have said they want to spend more on defense and non-defense above the debt ceiling caps of last year. Do you think it's a good idea to break those?
Well, we have a good bipartisan agreement in the Senate, which does go above last year's to some extent on both defense and non-defense. It's something I would be supportive of. We'll see what happens in the negotiations. And as for the timing, let's wait for the negotiations to occur. Okay? Yes.
Yesterday, former President Trump made some racist remarks about Vice President Harris's identity. Are you concerned that as your colleagues on the other side on the campaign trail, that they'll adopt some of those questions about Kamala Harris's identity? And what do you think that it says?
Well, I think my Republican colleagues are embarrassed. I had one senior Republican colleague say to me this morning, I guess now you're going to win the election after we heard Trump last night. He said that. And let me say this. The lower Trump gets in the polls, the more unhinged he gets. The American people will be able to see that. Thank you, everybody.